one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Sullivan? Here. Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Nebaker?
Here.
Commissioner Aquila?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here. Next on the agenda is the agenda approval. Is this on? Can you hear me? I don't. I move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can we have a little discussion about the agenda?
About the agenda?
Yeah, now
Yes.
that it's been moved.
Yes. Wait, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to have it close up
All
tight.
right. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Webb.
I realize that on the consent calendar, there is there's approval of minutes of a work session that the board held about goal setting. And it was my impression when we met that that wasn't the final meeting on the goal setting. And I think that by making this public, we're implying that this is it. And I don't think it was my impression that this was not a final goal-setting exercise.
I thought it was.
Madam Chair, if I may, my recollection from reading those minutes is that we were to do it again in January. That's what it says, I think, down at the bottom. So we keep chewing at this, and we're next scheduled, if my recollection is correct, to do this again in January.
Well, since that time, we have agreed to have an initial budget deliberation this fall sometime. And in fact, we set a date for it.
So if we accept the minutes, Madam Chair, if I may, if we accept the minutes as written, what that does is reflect the agreement we came to at that time. I assume that in September, when we have a new county manager, we're going to be doing a lot of planning, and I assume that there may be revisions of plans that are part of the record now that are subject to renegotiation.
Okay, that would
So then you'll accept the,
absolutely.
thank you, ma'am.
So, was there a motion? Commissioner Thompson?
First and second.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The agenda is approved. We have a presentation on fourth quarter financials.
Yes, thank you. So this is for fiscal year ending 2019. Just a reminder that these are, these are unaudited numbers. We are currently going through our audit, and so once this is completed, that happens at the end of December, and so they'll be coming before us typically it happens in February, and we'll have audited numbers. But for the most part, these numbers are not going to change a whole lot. There are some departments that receive grant funding, and so those grant monies, those grant revenues aren't yet included. So it'll change slightly, but for the positive, not for the negative. And then just to kind of reiterate that we budgeted our taxes, and we came in 103% of the collected amount. Oops, this is very touchy tonight. So when looking at all funds, the revenues that were collected, this does not include any beginning balances that roll from year to year, and this does not include any transfers that happen between funds. And so this shows that we came in at 152%, which is significantly higher than in years past. And the reason for that being, we received our bond revenue of 23 million, and so that significant difference between the 72 million received and the 47 million that was budgeted is, the majority of that is $23 million in bond revenue, and then additional revenues in timber revenues that were received beyond what was budgeted, as well as just in other areas such as taxes and fees collected and such.
Do you have a breakout of that increase in any slide going forward, just so, I mean, it's just interesting to me.
As far as the increase for the bond revenues, or?
What's bond, what's timber, what's everything?
Well, no, sorry, the 23 million is the bond, and this variance between the 72 and the 47 is approximately 25 million, and the majority of that is the bond.
So 2 million.
Yes, yeah. So this next slide here is general fund specific. So again, it does not include the beginning balance and transfers amounts. And this is as a result of timber revenues coming in higher than anticipated, as well as the taxes coming in slightly higher in room taxes, as well as property taxes. This slide here is a breakdown of our major fund revenues that we receive in the general fund. So again, you can see property taxes, we budgeted 8.7 million, and those came in at 9 million. Timber revenues for the general fund, we budget the 15-year low, which was 2.18. And then per our long-term financial plan, we then budget what we need for our future capital projects in special projects. So we budgeted 1.39 in special projects. And when we had our long-term financial plan update a couple years ago, it was recommended that we then move the general fund stabilization account out of special projects and into the general fund, which is where it made more sense. And so anything beyond what we needed in special projects then goes towards that general fund stabilization account. And so that's why the timber revenue is showing as coming in at 3.6 million. This is not a slide that I put in the quarterly financials until the end of the year, because this just kind of gives you a history of our timber revenue receipts and why we budget that 15-year low amount because of the volatility of it. For the last several years, our 15-year low has been 2.18 million. And so when you look at that, you can see back in 11-12, we did not meet that amount. In 12-13, it looks like we came in exactly at, we were actually approximately $50,000 over. And then 13-14, 14-15, we started to go up. 17-18 came in significantly higher, and then 18-19 dropped back down. So again, it just kind of shows that volatility.
Is this because of prices or increased cuts? Or both?
The majority of it is increased prices. So the Department of Forestry, they send out when they have these sales, timber sales, and a couple years ago when they would be sending out those timber sales, the estimated bid as to the value of it, a lot of the sale prices weren't even coming in at that amount. Now they're exceeding the estimated value of it. So I am not a forester. You'd have to talk to Ty or Dan Goody in regards to how they're managing their cuts. But from what I see in the information that we receive, the dollar value is significantly higher.
Thank you.
So this is for the general fund, through the fourth quarter, our payroll costs. As you can see, they have gone up, but the majority of this increase is a result of increased FTE that we have, we've been increasing the number of FTE over the past several years. We also, every 2 years is when our PERS rates increase. And so the 18-19, the 17-18 and the 18-19 year, our PERS rates were the same. This 19 through 21 biennium is going to see an increase in those PERS costs. So that's the nice thing about being able to add FTE, but then that does continue to increase your healthcare and PERS costs.
Monica, if I
Yes.
may. So we're closing in on 11 million, almost $11 million payroll,
More than 11 million.
more than 11 million.
Oh, well, if you're just
in
talking about,
wages.
if you're just talking about wages,
Wages,
yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
And we have record prices for timber. Should we be saving more for the PERS?
We do set aside,
I
so
know
we
we
just.
do, but I
yeah,
wonder.
we did, just in the, sorry, I'm between 1920, 1819, trying to think which year it was. In 1819, we paid $1 million towards our unfunded liability because every year we've been transferring $300,000 into a unfunded liability PERS account, reserve account, so that we could make those payments to help offset those PERS rate increases. And so in 1819, we paid $1 million towards that unfunded liability amount. And so then that will help offset so our PERS rate increase won't be as substantial.
But even without the increase, just paying the PERS in and of themselves is quite a task, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something that we budget for. So when we're looking at our, through the budget process, we build our cost sheets and we anticipate what those PERS rates are going to be. So when we're making recommendations to the board, we're taking all of those things into consideration. And when we're looking at forecasting out how we can sustain the additional FTE that we're adding. Is that
Okay.
what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, the times are good right now, but
Yeah, and
who
that's.
knows what's around the corner?
And that's why we only budget that 15-year low as far as revenues, and that's why we make sure that we have that general fund stabilization account, and then as we're able to continue to put money towards that PERS reserve account, so that way we can help offset those future increases.
I think we all appreciate the finance department budgets very conservatively.
Well, it's been a long-standing practice, so I can't take credit for it, but thank you.
I think it showed a lot of vision 20-some years ago when they did that. I mean, we've been fortunate. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, this here is a breakdown of all of the org units within the general fund departments. And so as you can see, everybody came in under budget. In some areas, it was a little bit closer than other areas. The transfers amounts comes in exactly what was budgeted, and these are transfers from the general fund to different things such as the health department, the child support, those other non-general fund departments.
Monica, if I may ask another question.
Please.
The jail nurse, the $433,000,
Yes.
is that the medical, that can't possibly be for one nurse? I mean,
No,
that's the whole budget for what the jail nurse does?
Yes, so that we actually have 2 nurses. So that includes nursing staff, and then it also includes the medical costs for inmates. So if an inmate has to go have either dental work done, or if they have to go to the emergency room, their medications, those are those costs that are going there.
And I see that it's almost at 100% of what's been budgeted. Are we seeing an increase in medical costs in the jail over the recently?
It's kind of hit or miss. In some years, we haven't come in that close. I can't speak to what the incident was, but we did have an inmate who came in right at the end of the fiscal year with the $30,000 medical cost. So they had to go to the emergency room. So those are things that we cannot really anticipate. If you're talking about some of the medications and such like that, we haven't seen huge. There's been some increases, but not huge increases. It's kind of these unexpected instances that somebody has something wrong that ends up having to go to the emergency room and being.
But the emergency room visits or medication, that would all be included in that amount of
That's in
money?
that jail
Okay.
nurse.
On the last meeting, we got the copy of the county news, and they had a front page article about sheriffs nationwide that was asking about medical costs for jails, and that there seems to be some confusion on the federal level between jails and prisons and how those benefits. Are we involved with that investigation of how they can help us with that? Do you know the
I
county?
know that the
state?
sheriff and the lieutenant and the chief Chief Sheriff are constantly working with the state as far as trying to make sure that we are receiving adequate funding levels, whether it's the jail, whether it's the State Marine Board, trying to make sure that we're receiving adequate funding, especially when they're pushing back a lot in regards to jails holding some of the inmates longer rather than the states taking them. So, but we're also kind of at their mercy.
Well, it sounds to me like it's a potential for a class action lawsuit.
Some of it can be considered an unfunded mandate, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. This is a breakdown of the org unit for the Board of Commissioners in regards to what was budgeted and where some expenses went to. And this is a breakdown by commissioners. There's a little bit of a variance because there is 2 commissioners who are not listed here that were listed previously, but again, they all came in under budget.
I got to start spending more.
Yeah. This is a breakdown of the Public Health Department. As you can see, the majority of these came in under budget. Some of that has to do with as far as shifting around some of the nursing department, or the nurses within this department regularly are shifting their FTE in regards to making sure that they are doing the work specific, charging the work that they're doing specific to those departments. And then in some instances, we had a lot of turnover, so they have been working, while they've budgeted for those positions, it's hard to keep nursing staff, and we had a lot of turnover this past year. And so as you can see, though, we are moving forward. I think this is the first time at the end of the year that we have significant cost on the household hazardous waste facility, which is scheduled to open in October, hopefully, fingers crossed and knock on wood and everything else.
If I could just ask, the discrepancy between the amount budgeted and the amount spent, is that because of vacancies? And so then the inference is that the services weren't delivered. So are we?
In some instances, I can't say that we haven't been still meeting the needs of all those. I haven't heard any complaints in regards to the Public Health Department. In some instances too, we budgeted for certain grant funding or for certain state funding, and then cuts may have happened. And so if we budgeted for it, but then didn't spend it, it's going to show that we came in under budget as well.
We've had some very good programmatic presentations on the part of the health department folk. I don't know about my colleagues. I'd be interested in getting a comprehensive overview just to be reassured or reality checked, what the foresters call ground truthing, with our budgeting and the services and the staff and the relationship between all of those going forward again. If staff could make a note of that, I'd be grateful.
Sure.
Thank you.
This is the roads department. Again, the road district one that is 100% met is essentially everything that we receive in there gets transferred out to road admin, road maintenance, and equipment replacement for the road work to be done. So the road admin and support came in relatively on budget, a little bit under. We did have some staff vacancies there as well. And then road maintenance and construction, a lot of that is a result of not spending contingencies because we're saving so that we can hopefully in the future make a major move to a new facility. Yes.
So we're expecting to be able to use our road maintenance and construction for other purposes?
No, they have been budgeting for contingency. So because they intend in the future to be able to use those monies to build a new facility at a site that's out of the inundation zone. So they budget their contingency, but they don't spend it. So therefore it comes in under budget because we did not spend the money.
So why don't we have a separate thing,
Because it's budgeted within the fund, and so it's this year, because their reserves are getting big, and they want to make sure that it doesn't get spent, and so they invested it outside of the state pool. It's unappropriated fund balance, so that means that it won't even show up in the budgeted amount, but there's still reserves there. We've talked about this during the budget process in regards to unappropriated fund balance and contingency. And contingency is something that you budget for, so should something happen and you need it, it's there. But unappropriated fund balance is something where you can't, if you don't budget for it, you cannot touch it. And so in the past, they've budgeted it in contingencies. And so now, since that is getting to be a larger amount because they're trying to save those reserves so that way they can spend them on relocation, they did not budget it. So it is not going to show up. There's still some budgeted for contingency. So should some project come up that they need to do. But a majority of that is in unappropriated fund balance.
That makes me a little uncomfortable just in terms of public information. There's a lynch mob forming for me out in the southern part of my district, and I'm sure that other commissioners have the same issues of people who are so frustrated with their road situation. And this, to me, looks like, well, gosh, we're only spending, less than 80% of what we're budgeting. And that's a whole different, to me, that's a capital issue that I just think that from a public perception standpoint, I don't think this is a good way to present to.
So we still spent $5 million on road construction, and we only have so many people that can get the work done. And so they have their master road plan that they work on every year, and kind of like we were talking about the Westport project, and so that plan is going to be happening in the 2021 fiscal year. And so they have roads, but they only have so many people and so much weather that they can actually work on those roads. So they're still getting all of the roads that are on that plan. They're still getting the work done, but they're not spending the contingency, so that way in the future, because the road district also gets timber money. So in the years where they aren't necessarily going to have as much timber money coming in, they have those reserves so they can still keep on track with their road improvement plan, or in the instance of a relocation.
But I think that for the average taxpayer, we're just not, it's almost as if we're, I don't want to use a pejorative word, but
Well, I would be happy if you want to send any constituents who are calling you, because in the budget, it shows the projects that the amount that's budgeted, and it shows the contingency amount that's being budgeted, and that contingency amount is the amount that isn't getting spent. So I would be happy to explain that to your constituents.
Capital road plan that we're moving on, and we
Yeah.
haven't made any modifications to it, so we're continuing on the plan.
But to concur with Commissioner Webb, I don't dispute the wisdom of your policies, not at all, or the fulfillment of the plan. That's not the point. The point is, how do we communicate to constituents, yes, we're taking your money, and yes, it's being stockpiled, because we have these things we have to do down the way to be able to continue to provide services for you. And so how to capture that, and it isn't just a one-on-one thing, although I appreciate your generosity in offering to explain it, but what we're looking at is more public involvement, and so we're trying to, I want to say, make more robust communication tools, and so that's what we're looking to do. So to accept this as it is now, because we raised this during the budget process as well, so going forward, we'll look to collaborate with you to try to develop fuller ways of explaining the contingency and the and all of those intricacies of the budget, so people have confidence that even though they're not getting value at this moment, that the accumulation is being managed so as to provide greater value in the future. Is that your point?
That, and the fact that, as you know, I have been critical of the fact that we don't have a very robust capital improvements program. And if we're not showing the places that I believe should be shown as a capital improvement program, I just, I like the simplicity of your presentation now. This is the kind of thing that Joe and Jane Citizen can look at and really understand well. But I don't see any capital improvements.
This is just a quarterly financial report. This isn't a capital improvement plan, and it's not the budget document either, so.
Well, to Joe Citizen, the budget document that's this thick doesn't resonate as much as this does, and which I like very much. I mean, I really, really like this. But it's just that we're not including.
So if you want me to include more information, I can, but then that's going to make this document, that document's going to get bigger.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying that that if we're saving money for capital improvements in the future, I'd like us to be able to say that.
Sure.
I think it's
We're
also-
saving money for capital improvements in the future.
I think it's really important that we are representatives for our constituents, and when they have questions, that we have a great staff to offer this information for us. So if people are upset and they have a problem, it's up to us to talk with them and then either point them in the direction or get the information from staff so that we can help them be more informed.
I always do that.
Well,
That's
good.
standard, that's SOP.
Whoops, sorry. Okay, so this next slide is again the remaining funds that don't include the general, the public health, or the public works funds. So again, there are some that are significantly below budget, such as the industrial revolving fund. And that is again because there are contingencies, which are those monies that are set aside for future projects or for should something happen and there is no more monies coming in. The industrial revolving fund, those monies are replenished through the sale of properties within an industrial zone, and the county at this point in time only has the North Coast Business Park property, which is industrial property that's for sale. And so at this point in time, we have not had any major projects coming out of that. This year, we will be completing the Bugle Road project. It is our intention, and that is approximately $1.2 million. So that industrial revolving fund, which is approximately $4 million right now, will be decreasing down to $3 million once the completion of Bugle Road happens. Another one that is below budget is our insurance reserve. So the county does not budget any revenues in our insurance reserve, but we do get, when we are able to realize workers' comp safe dividends, that is where we put those monies. And so when we are paying on various insurance claims, like if there's a rock that chips somebody's window or somebody's damage done by a brush chopper, we have a $25,000 aggregate deductible, and we use these insurance reserve monies to help pay for that aggregate deductible before it kicks in. Are there any questions in regards to this? And this is here where you also see the bond reserve fund, that $1 million. Typically, we don't spend any money out of that. But like I said, in the 18-19 fiscal year, we paid $1 million towards our unfunded liability amount. So again, just a reminder, these are unaudited numbers. All funds came in under the budgeted amounts, and the auditors were here in the second week of July, and they will be coming back at the beginning of October to complete their field work. Once again, we will need to make sure that we get audited financial information from the Housing Authority. The board currently acts as the housing authority for the Clatsop County Housing Authority. They are in the process of transitioning to the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, but until they are actually done and gone and everything is off their books, we have to include them within our financials. So we will be making sure that we are regularly communicating with them to make sure we get our information in a timely manner. Any questions?
Is there another meeting with the housing? We used to have periodic meetings with them.
Yeah, that's something that Todd Johnston should be working with the board on, because essentially, you're his board, and you're my county board, and so he should be trying to reach out to communicate with you.
As the liaison to that board, there hasn't been a discussion about that. I mean, Todd and I together worked with Heather about the transfer of, getting those properties off the book, transferred, basically, to the ownership of the Housing Authority. But in terms of meetings or anything like that, I haven't felt a mandate for that.
Oh, I don't know. I was just wondering, because the last couple of years, we've had periodic meetings.
Yeah, and I don't know, you don't act as counsel for them, do you? Yeah, so I don't know what needs to happen with the Clatsop County Housing Authority for them to dissolve. I don't know. I would imagine you would need to have a final meeting for that to occur.
So
Heather's not there.
You and I talked
When
about.
asked, but they also have had another attorney working with them. I'm not sure who they use.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you were working.
I helped them on the last land transaction.
Yeah.
Because their normal person they use didn't know anything about land. So, I don't know.
Okay, but am I hearing a mandate because we can make that happen if you all want to report from that, or?
I want to have a party to celebrate when we turn it over.
Okay, I'm always ready for a party.
I've just been hearing that it's going to happen, so just let me know when it does happen.
Yeah.
I would like it to happen very soon, preferably before, because now we're in 1920, and so they'll have to show up on our audit again next year.
I just think it's a real accomplishment that all these funds came under budget, and I think a real reflection of conservative budgeting, so great job.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well said, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I got.
All right. Thank you. Now is the time for, this is an opportunity for anyone from the public to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings. We are going to have one tonight, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. The first person is Christina May Ketchum. Please come forward and speak into the microphone and give us your name again and your address.
Christina May Ketchum, 41965 Wickiup Terrace Lane, Astoria, Oregon. Good evening, Commission and Chairman. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. On November 19th, 2018, while I was at work at the Clatsop County South Fork Class 9 Salmon Hatchery, I was shot at. The bullet was very close to my face as I could feel a change in air pressure. I was compelled by managers on 3 different occasions to retell what had happened to me to groups of people without apparent regard for how reliving the experience would affect me. I believe there is opportunity for the county to consider its response to workplace shootings. I ask the Commission to direct staff to provide introductory training to trauma-informed care to all staff, to explore change in organizational culture to include trauma-informed care, where an emphasis is placed on understanding, respecting, and appropriately responding to the effects of trauma at all levels. I also ask and compelled to ask the Commissioners, should schools be informed of the incident as they are planning their fall field trips to the hatchery? Should parents be informed of the shooting before being asked to give their children permission to attend spawning activities at the hatchery? Thank you for considering moving the county toward a more respectful workplace by implementing a change in organizational culture, including trauma-informed care, as a response to workplace shootings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and speaking with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening.
Next, we have Tamara Taylor.
Tamara Taylor, 2810 Waterfront Street, Astoria, Oregon. I'm here asking the board to very carefully consider who they appoint for the sheriff, with the new sheriff, or the previous sheriff giving their resignation. I grew up in North Dakota. My mother was the county, or the city judge for 20 years. My father had his own business, but also did relief work for the city and the county sheriff, city police department. I myself worked for the highway patrol for 6 years. In North Dakota, they had a group called Posse Comitatus that was a radical right group. From this group, from the 70s and 80s, we now have a constitutional sheriff's program out there. That's nationwide. I ask that in the vetting of the new sheriff, consideration is being taken of their involvement with Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. This is something that is very unhealthy. It is a program that David Clark firmly believes in, Joe Arpaio firmly believes in, and we do have this within the state of Oregon. For me, it brings back a lot of the ugliness that happened in the 70s and the 80s because of their following of a lot of the ideology of Posse Comitatus, anti-government, anti-tax. This group feels, CSPOA, that they are their own law, so to speak. They say they're constitutional, but they feel they're above anybody but themselves. They need to work, whoever our sheriff comes in needs to work with any law officers that come in to the area, and that's something that we have to be careful. A lot of times we don't know about it until it's too late. We also have the Proud Boys that sometimes it turns out become part of our police departments. These are all things that in our area, as close as we are to Washington, Portland, I ask that that consideration is being taken and thought of as we move forward. I've been living in this area for 3 years now. I love it. This is my new home. I want it to be a healthy, stable environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have David Ambrose.
David Ambrose, 1179 Jerome Avenue here in Astoria. I also wanted to address the upcoming decision I'm guessing it would be an interim sheriff until the next election for the sheriff. It's going to be, whether we like it or not, a very political decision. I'm a bit disappointed in our last sheriff's political stances that didn't seem to have much to do with Oregon law in some aspects. So I'm hoping that you will take the time to really look at the candidates that are coming before you for the sheriff. The interim sheriff will be in office for some time, and as much as I know about elections, the incumbent usually has an advantage So you may be appointing someone as an interim sheriff, but it could be for many years to come. So I hope you will take the time to really look at the candidates and make a very informed decision, and keep our sheriff's office out of politics as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica? Commission doesn't appoint.
They will appoint, I misspoke, they do appoint, but the interim, the chief deputy will serve as sheriff until the board makes a decision after the sheriff officially retires, which isn't until
December 31st.
Yeah, December. So Paul can serve in office until the board decides to appoint someone, and then whoever is appointed serves until the general election, the next general election.
In May,
Not this coming May, no, the following.
Year.
November?
I get the years mixed up.
Yeah,
It'd be the-
his term would end in 2021, and so it would be, it would be the May election, and then the November election would be the deciding, and then the sheriff would be, whoever won that election would be appointed January 1. Isn't that the way, the same as the DA?
I don't think it's, yeah, is
The
it like the
charter
county
says
commission?
Until the next general election.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was elected, I'm on the same rotation as Sheriff Bergen is. You know, if you win the primary in May, then you don't take office until January.
Yeah,
And that's what you're saying, you think
Yeah.
that's what it is with Sheriff Bergen,
yes.
or the sheriff's office. Office of Sheriff.
So when Sheriff Bergen retires, if his retirement date is December 31st of 2019, Paul, the chief deputy, would act as the interim until the board appoints somebody to act in the sheriff's place. Unless, for some reason, I don't know that the board could appoint somebody before the sheriff actually retires. No. So it would have to be.
I'd probably object to that.
Well, I mean, no, I'm referring to, like, if at the last meeting in December, if the board was to say, we appoint so-and-so effective January 1, 2020.
No,
Yeah.
Paul would serve until your board.
So, but I mean, Paul would serve as interim, and then if we were to appoint, whoever was appointed or was assigned would still have to run for election.
Yes,
Right.
In the May primary.
yes.
Right.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Brian Shore. Oh, you want to speak about something on the public hearing? We will have the public hearing, so you could speak then? Okay. All right, so last we have Kurt England.
Likewise.
Oh, it's the same? Oh, public hearing, yes. Thank you. All right, so you can both speak during that time. All right. That concludes business from the public. Next, we're looking at the consent calendar.
Madam Chair, move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And now we come to the Commissioners' liaison reports. Commissioner Thompson?
Holy cow. Well, I missed a meeting, so I want to say thank you for the tickets to the county fair. Sorry I couldn't make it. I want to say thank you to the Chinook Indian Nation for their invitation to the celebration of their first annual Tansy Point Treaty Days, which I think is a fine event. Couldn't make that either. I want to mention the fact that the Cannon Beach Medical Reserve Corps invites community members to a learning session on Saturday, September 7th, 2019, from 9 to 11 a.m., Cannon Beach City Hall. You'll learn how to get prescription drugs in a disaster. You'll learn how to have medications in an emergency kit. You'll learn about paying your plan's premium, and a whole bunch of other good things. So community members are invited down to Cannon Beach for that. I want to mention the fact that we are moving ahead with the task force. Thank you, Jennifer Purcell, working with Amy Lovelace as funded by a grant from Meyer Memorial Trust to convene a group to look at having more and better daycare opportunities within Clatsop County. We had a meeting of Northwest Act and Colpack. Northwest Act is about transportation. As we heard in the work session before the meeting, that's the federal level. There's an interaction of all our economic development activities. I'm looking forward to having the new county manager here so we can look at doing better and more effective team play on economic development. I've been to the Association of Oregon Counties. I've been attending the Finance and Audit Committee meetings in order to look at how do Clatsop County taxpayers get their money's worth from our participation in the Association of Oregon Counties. So we've been looking at fiscal accountability, restructuring the dues policies. There's a lot of information going forward. I have enough data to make your eyes roll around in your head. If anybody's interested in that, I'm happy to share it. What I'll tell you is that I am committed that we have good governance. That's my vision. My mission is to increase the visibility, credibility, and effectiveness of the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners. I focus particularly on housing, ecologically sustainable economic development, and resilience, but I do a lot of other things in addition to that. The Association of Oregon Counties is a nexus point for county commissioners to be involved, to have a greater scope, and to bring back more money to do things in Clatsop County. So I'd just like to encourage my peers to be as involved as you're able to be in the Association of Oregon Counties. There was also a board retreat for the Association of Oregon Counties. I attended on someone else's nickel. I had voice but not vote because Clatsop County does not have a position on the AOC Board of Directors. I'm hopeful, again, with improved teamwork under a new county manager, we will be able to expand our scope and effectiveness. We discussed a lot of issues, including the fiscal reports and the budget options, looking at dues, looking at going forward to have a search using Prothman to get a new executive director or a newly confirmed executive director of the Association of Oregon Counties. There was about a 2-to-1 division. Many rural folks said, no, just appoint Mike Eliason, who's been the acting. Urban county people wanted to have a bona fide search. I think it's better to have a search because what that does is confirm the focus of the organization, and it gives the person who gains the title of executive director additional credibility. Mike Eliason has done a great job. I hope he goes ahead and applies, but that's his decision to make. I was able to provide feedback to the board members and to the process in the Audit and Finance Committee about our experience with Prothman, so that was wonderful. I'm also a member of the membership committee. What that is to provide value both to individual county commissioners and judges, because there are only 120 county commissioners and judges all over Oregon. How to give value to that, how to get business partners to be part of that organization as well, so that we have a more robust conversation. Friends of Haystack Rock are looking for money. We have a, I don't know, is this a 50-pound book, Gail and Julia? 47.8. This is a big book. I mean, kudos to planning and community development, because what we're doing is what they don't have to do, but they're taking on anyway, is having years, literally, of meetings to grind through, and sometimes it's a grind, it's a fine grind, to get through community input so that we have a land and water use code that protects and promotes neighborhood livability and sound economic practices in Clatsop County. Is that a fair 10-word summary? Close enough, thank you. So kudos to staff. I'm blessed because I have such a big district geographically that I get to attend the one in Arch Cape, and the one that covers Seaside Rural and LC Vine Maple, and you're doing a wonderful job in all of those. I know, it chokes you up, doesn't it? Yeah. So, and to that regard, we were out in Jewel. The Jewel School has the most amazing duplicating equipment. They have the fanciest school magazine I've ever seen. If you want to take a look at those, it's great fun as well. They need money. They're looking to send their students back east. If you want to throw some money at something, that's a good thing to do. The Medical Reserve Corps in Cannon Beach met, and we're learning how to fill out the paperwork so that when there's an emergency and we have people who are injured, the people who are providing ad hoc medical care will be able to fill out the paperwork to see that people get taken care of and tracked medically. Northwest Health Preparedness Organization, the hospital organizations, we've been meeting so that hospitals in Clatsop County, CMH, Providence, and then down into Tillamook with Adventist work to coordinate with community partners so that, again, we have planned, coherent medical care in case of an emergency that links us to what they're calling the mothership in Portland, and working on communication and ham radio and all that kind of stuff. You've heard that we've been working with Cedar. I went to the Forest Trust Lands Advisory Committee. My constituents have asked me to do that on their behalf, and so I'm doing that. We had a tour of the Wanna Mill, and I learned something there that I just want to highlight. I'd always seen Wanna Mill as this part of this monolithic corporation. I learned something different. I learned a couple of things that I think are very important to notice. One is that within their company, individual plants have to bid against each other to be able to get business. So it's internally competitive, and so it's the lowest price thing, because I wanted to understand how their business model works. They have to be competitive within their company to be able to get the business. That's number one. Number two, the Wanna Mill deals with pulp and paper. That means they're taking responsibility for the pulp that they use to make the paper. Other parts of the company buy the pulp from South American trees that aren't subject to sustainability practices mandated in the United States. So what that means is the Wanna Mill is being responsible for the pulp and the paper. So if we're looking at climate change, it's a worldwide phenomenon, and they're looking worldwide to be responsible. So I learned a lot that helped me value what they do. I also have this swell map of various kinds of critters, because we are moving forward with that Arch Cape forest tour that's going to be held September 13th, because the AOC district meeting is down at the Arch Cape Fire Station between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. So I want to invite my colleagues, if you're available, come down on Friday, September 13th from 10 to 2 for the AOC District 7 meeting, because at 2:30 in the afternoon there's going to be another tour of the Arch Cape Forest. You may get to see some of these wonderful creatures, and Senator Johnson has already said she's coming too. So if you want to attend, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know, because we need to get a head count. You're there, huh? So. And the other thing is, I'm going to be gone for a while. I've got a sister with some health issues, so I'm going to be gone to look after my baby sister, and I hope I come back calmer and happier than I've been. Thank you for your support, colleagues. I'm grateful for your sympathy. All right, that's my report. Thanks.
Commissioners, this is our time for our liaison reports. And I appreciate good information that helps us be informed, but remember, this time is for our liaison reports. Commissioner Quila.
Chair Nebeker, thank you. I attended the Fair Board meeting last night, so they had a recap of the Clatsop County Fair that was held earlier this month. And attendance was up, revenues were not up, So they're working on that for next year, make sure that they correspond with the higher attendance. There's some logistical things that they want to improve, but the main thing is that the board members are really passionate about making the fair experience a wonderful one for everybody that attends. And they're a really great group, and I appreciate being the liaison to that committee. They did table a decision on cementing the floor, so that was one of the big capital improvements that they wanted to do, or they were considering doing this year. That would be cementing the main arena floor, and they decided to wait till next month. They had some of the other users and stakeholders that were going to be presenting at the September meeting. So after that, they'll make a decision whether or not they move forward on that during this fiscal year, or they wait till next November. They actually have their bond that's going to be coming up, and they're going to be going out to the voters next November, so this might be rolled into that. So they'll make that decision at the next meeting, and I'll save the rest of my report for the good of the order.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
When the fair goes out for a bond issue, do they need our okay to do that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, they bring it to you and you approve what usually they,
Say yes.
Yeah.
it's an operating
Levy.
levy for 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
So you
They
said,
too are very conservative in their budgeting, so they're under budget in everything, and they've been kind of saving their money as well.
how did it go with the tickets for the entertainment?
I think they said they had 2,100 tickets sold for the concert, which is up from last year. I think 300 more than last year. The sales for the concert for Midland was very good.
And so
It was a great concert too, and so
I heard that. So it paid for itself.
it did. I think they were in. I can't remember what the final revenue was.
They didn't have all of the final numbers because they still have some invoices that they're still trying to pay out on.
Yeah,
but,
they had some preliminary numbers. I can't remember exactly what it ended up being, but they did end up in the black.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan.
I'm not on the fair boards, but I just wanted to put a shout out to how wonderful the fair was and how impressive the 4-H program is. I'm just so in awe of what they do with young people and how the young people work so hard and grow as people. It's just very impressive. So I appreciate that. And Sandra Carlson just does a terrific job with all, and there's tons and tons of leaders and volunteers, but they just do a great job.
Yeah, I agree.
And is this the time for me to ask about Regional Solutions Team? I'd like to ask for consensus. Or should I do that as good of the order?
Yes. Good of the order. This is
Good
for
of the
your
order, okay.
report.
All right, then that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Commissioner Webb?
I'd like to do a shout out for the comp plan team. They're really working amazingly hard and doing a great amount of research. And I think that one of the things I am most hopeful about with this long process is that there are a lot of educational opportunities. We're going to have our citizens be very astute about planning issues by the time this is over, because I really enjoy the meetings, et cetera. It's been really terrific. A shout out to the fair. It was fantastic. Once again, Astoria High School has a Future Farmers of America chapter after a long hiatus, and that was pretty wonderful to see those performances. I went to the fair, I think, every day, and it was pretty wonderful. And I thought the Midland concert was terrific. The whole thing was wonderful. I did object to the, I thought, very strident political tables that were there. I found them, and a number of my constituents found them very offensive, several of them. And I would love for us to be able to not have the county fair be the place for political statements that are that strident. That's all I have.
Okay. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the fair. I love going to the county fair, but I was out of state. At the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting, continuing the failure to appear reduction program is very successful. The FTA rate has fallen under this program from about 40% to 50% failure to appear rate to 12.5%. And this greatly reduces the waste of court time and sheriff's time, as the sheriffs have to go back out and rearrest someone when they miss their court date. I know I've reported on this before, but this also has an impact on families. The program works by keeping contact and sometimes recommending sources for help. This is also part of our overlay program for, I forget what that is. That workshop that we did.
Oh, the SIM?
SIM, thank you.
Intercept mapping?
Yes, the sequential intercept mapping. This is part of that, working very well. So they recommend sources for help with people who are on release until their court date. Reminder calls are also made, much like your dentist or physician does for you. Clatsop County instituted this program because of the high success rates that other Oregon counties have had. And some of the grant money is reinvested into organizations that provide services within the county. The request exceeded available funds, so two smaller ones, VOCA and the Lighthouse for kids, received full funding, and the harbor received the rest of the available funds. Like Commissioner Webb, I also attended at the Pacific Grange our kickoff for that area for the comprehensive plan update, and we received a good report and input from someone from the Chinook tribe, and that was wonderful. And that concludes our liaison reports. Next, excuse me. We have the county manager's report.
So, again, the fair was wonderful. The 4-H and groups raised over $409,000 in auction sales, so that was pretty impressive, and thanks to so many businesses within the community who supported that auction and that program. The fair is working towards having the house auctioned off. We're working with county council to draft up some contracts as far as whether or not the individual who ends up buying the house wants to have the house moved as a whole, or if they want to salvage it. And so we are working towards hopefully having that auction in September. And hopefully somebody will be interested in purchasing it and moving it as a whole to relocate it someplace else. There are a couple of road closures that I just want to kind of put out there because the Public Works Department is going to be having impacts out on Youngs River Loop at milepost 8.1. They're going to be closing that down August 26th, and it'll be closed through mid-October so that they can replace the culvert at Moose Moose. And then also on Columbia Beach Lane at milepost .2, August 19th through September 5th, they'll be having Columbia Beach Lane shut down. Tomorrow and Friday, members from jail staff will be heading, as well as the buildings and grounds staff will be heading up to Longview and then up to Skagit and one other jail up in the area to see jail facilities, see how the operations are, see how the layout is, so that way we can take some of that information and see how it can be incorporated into the design of our jail, as well as the operations of our jail. And then I will be gone Monday, the 19th through August 26th. And so if you need me, I will have cell phone, email access, but I will primarily try to ignore you.
As well you should.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is public hearing regarding the affirmation of Planning Commission decision to approve similar use authorization and conditional use permit application. This is a quasi-judicial hearing on an application from James Nikes. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
For a similar use authorization and conditional use permit. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest or ex parte contact to report?
Chair Nebeker, I have a personal relationship with Will Kaplinger. I consider him a friend. He and I have not discussed this issue. My good feelings toward him will in no way impact my capacity to be fair and impartial in this matter.
Thank you. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the board to hear this matter at this time? May we have the staff report?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Nebeker and Commissioners. I'm Julia Decker, Planning Manager, Community Development. This evening, for your consideration, we have a Planning Commission decision that requires your review. It is an approval of a consolidated application for a similar use authorization and a conditional use approval. The similar use authorization is a Type 3 application, and it is a little unusual. It can be handled either as a quasi-judicial application or as a Type 4 legislative matter amending the zoning ordinance. Section 6.010 of the zoning code, authorization of similar development, requires that any similar use authorization by the Planning Commission be reviewed by your board, and your board can determine if you wish to address the matter as an ordinance or simply affirm the Planning Commission's decision. Because time is a factor for this application, the Planning Commission and staff respectfully request that you give preference to affirming the decision. A little bit of background. The site for this proposal is 34837 Highway 101 Business, owned by Mr. Nikes, and it's also referred to by a great many people in the community as the Iverson property. It's on the north side of Highway 101, just about 1,000 feet west of the intersection there with Youngs River Road and Lewis and Clark and Highway 101 Business. It's that straight stretch. There is a map in your package on page 132. If you wanted to take a look at that, you'll get a feel for what it looks like. The property is zoned Rural Community Commercial, RCC, and the requested use is a trucking or freighting operation, and it is not listed among the uses in the RCC zone. The application is for a specific business. It's for TP Freight, which is currently located in the city of Astoria over on the east side, not too far from the Maritime Museum, actually right next to City Lumber, really, across the street. TP Freight has been notified by the owner of the property they lease that they must move. And TP Freight is a commercial freight carrier that fills a special niche here in this region. In the application for this proposal, Mr. Nikes and his consultant compared the proposed use to uses allowed in the general commercial zone, which allows freighting operations. Much of the RCC zone that is now in the Miles Crossing Jeffers Garden area used to be general commercial before the zoning ordinance was adopted in 2003. There are trucking and freighting businesses already there operating legally because they were there under the general commercial zoning. So there's already businesses like that there. Staff reviewed not only the businesses allowed in the general commercial zone, but also more recent businesses permitted under the RCC zoning that include components, deliveries, distribution, dispatching, and there are a number of them listed in the staff report on pages 137 and 138 of your packet. There are no complaints that staff is aware of regarding any of these activities. Staff found, and the Planning Commission agreed, that TP Freight, specifically TP Freight that we're talking about, would be similar to other businesses immediately adjacent and across the highway from it, and the number of trips per day generated by the firm would be insignificant. about the same number as trips generated by 2 single-family dwellings. Retail establishments generally generate quite a bit more. Mr. Nikas already has a Type 2 conditional use approval for this site for a mini storage, and it includes floodplain review, stormwater drainage, and grading and fill approvals, a wetland delineation approved by the Oregon Department of State Lands, and access permits from the Oregon Department of Transportation. The building is under construction right now for the mini storage. This approval would convert the mini storage to use for TP freight. Same building, same footprint, same access, wetland permits, all of it, already reviewed and approved with conditions by the various agencies and the Planning Commission. So this conversion would allow the permit to, this conversion would allow TP Freight to move into the new building much more rapidly. So we have conditions of approval on pages 117 and 118 of your agenda packets, and these have been devised to ensure that the development and its operating conditions will be consistent with the zoning ordinance and will not conflict with applicable goals and policies. Findings are included in the staff report documenting the development meets or can meet with conditions all applicable criteria, standards, goals, policies, and the findings in the staff report document the use is comparable to others in the zone. The applicant has not requested that the zoning ordinance be amended, and staff and the Planning Commission agree that the zoning ordinance language should not be amended to include freighting operation at this time. We have a couple of reasons. The county, as you have discussed this evening, has undertaken to update the comp plan and the zoning ordinance, and it is very likely the uses in the RCC zone will be reviewed as part of this process. Staff anticipates special attention will be paid to Miles Crossing and Jeffers Garden zoning for a variety of reasons. Secondly, there are about 145 acres of RCC zoning in the county, and it ranges from Westport to Arch Cape. It's in each of the rural communities. These are very diverse communities, and they share small pockets of this RCZ zoning. And staff and the commission believe amending the zoning to include freighting should be reviewed for each of these communities before adding the language. And staff suspects the RCC zone in Miles Crossing during the comp plan update will result in some very specific changes for that very specific zone. Community Development has received 4 public comments via email regarding this set of applications. Those are found in your packet on pages 125 through 129. All the comments that we have received have been in support. We have no comments in opposition, and again, these comments are all specific to this particular business. So the Planning Commission and staff recommend the similar use decision be logged administratively, but that the language not be added to the code at this time. And additionally, the Planning Commission has approved the conditional use for the TP Freight and recommends the board affirm the similar use authorization and the conditional use approval, and staff concurs. And with that, staff is happy to answer any questions.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Webb.
I think there is a typo on the first page of your report.
That is not impossible.
I'm assuming it's in your first bullet point, the last sentence. The decision document was signed by Planning Commission Chair Bruce Francis on August 31st, 2019. That date hasn't happened yet.
That would be the date that the decision will become final if your board moves for affirmation.
But it's,
Right.
So just if,
Thank you.
I think that's,
So add would be.
so, yeah, that just, I think that, as usual, Julia, this is a terrific staff report. And this is a case where the similar use is a kind of a unique thing in Oregon land use law that I'd like to point out.
We can have discussion, but do you have questions for staff?
No.
Okay. So I will now open the public hearing. The parties are advised that a failure to raise any issue with sufficient specificity to afford the board and the parties an opportunity to respond may preclude an appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Is there any testimony from the applicant? Does any member of the public wish to testify? Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm Brian Shore, and I'm the Vice President of TP Freight Lines and have been there since the year 2000 and have been familiar with the operation even before that here in Astoria, as well as our other terminals, which are all wholly in Oregon. I think the terminal there has been there since the very late 80s, about 30 years, and TP Freight Lines commenced in 1922 in Tillamook. And then the expansion here, and now we have terminals down the I-5 to Medford. And I want to stress the point that we've been accommodated, and I appreciate all your time and energy on this, but the community of Clatsop County has, we've functioned here for all these years as a real necessary component of this community. I probably don't want to over-explain it in the name of time, but we bring all the supplies to the Columbia Memorial Hospital, to Providence. There's probably very few retail establishments that don't see us once a year, many of them daily, such as England Marine and Electro. We bring all their 6 liquor stores in Clatsop County, the 2 in Cannon Beach, Seaside, Gearhart, Warrenton, and Astoria, and we're there weekly. That's an important flow of product. And the other real crux of our business is just all the retail, the Astoria Public Works. We bring additives for the water district over here, always overnight service. We do our line haul into Astoria for the DOT. We pledge to do it at night so we don't clog up Highway 26 or Highway 30 until after 10 o'clock on weekends and every day of the week. And then our guys come in and work daytime hours, 4 drivers, coming out of our footprint in the current location at the north end, where you all probably know. And I see this, our footprint really won't change. It'll be much more desirable where the new terminal would be and lie. And also, I see it being way more ideal for traffic that's coming in. We're right at that end where Highway 30 comes into town, and that's where our drivers are. I think the clutter factor would be, I'm not a city planner and a county planner, but I see that as being very ideal. And a big portion of our business is bringing to the final mile to the end users from vendors all over the country in Astoria and Seaside and Warrenton.
Excuse me, we're going to allow you to continue.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I feel very honored by that. Thank you. A big part of our business is the other major carriers, ones you may or may not have heard of, like YRC and Conway, XPO, R&L, Estes. They come here occasionally, but they give us all of their freight in Portland at our terminal in Swan Island, and we bring it over here to do the final mile transportation for them. And if you're conscious of that, there's about 10 companies we do that for, and we're taking the place and consolidating all that freight and bringing it over here, so the carbon footprint's way less because we're coming 1 time or 2 times at night with all of it, instead of having 10 big carriers try to come here daily or 3 times a week. So our function here is just, like I say, I can't enumerate all the businesses I could. It would take too much time. The Daily Astoria and England Marine, Electro, all the liquor stores, Home Depot, Walmart, we're bringing final mile freight to them, all the auto dealerships here, and I pretty much mean all of them, that we end up not gracing their doors, but coming there to bring them their freight daily. And I guess the big focus also that might ease the pain of the decision is that the footprint won't get any bigger going where we are. We're not changing the location. We've been, the new tenants are going to mow that down and build something new that I'm sure you're aware of. And our footprint will remain the same. We'd like to be as low profile as we can and still be slightly noticed. So if there's any questions, I would gladly field them, but I really thank you for the time, and I hope I pointed out what I
Thank you.
need to point out.
Do the commissioners have questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any follow-up comments? Oh. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
So I'm Kurt England, 1336 Irving here in Astoria. So I just came down to tell you that everything Brian said was true, actually. So he asked me to come down and as he mentioned, a couple things he forgot to, you left out, Brian, but he talked about the freight coming in, but there's also a lot of freight that goes out of here through their service, and it's a big part. And being local, a company like that, we can call up and get late afternoon service, get something rushed out the door for a customer, so it's important for us. And also, another thing he didn't mention is that they'd provide it at a very reasonable rate. So we do shop our freight rates because it costs us on the incoming side, costs us on the outgoing side, and so they're very efficient, and they do it at a very competitive price. So it's a benefit for everybody in the community, especially us being a retail business. A lot of times you have to factor that freight into your margins. So the lower that is, keeps us more competitive for the local people. So we're fully supportive of their project, and as a lot of other businesses in town, like you mentioned, are all in the same boat. So urge you to support them. Thank you.
Are there any follow-up comments from staff?
No rebuttal, thank you.
If there's no further comments, I will now close the public hearing. And now is the time for discussion.
Madam Chair, I move the board affirm the Planning Commission's approval of the similar use authorization and conditional use permit without requiring the matter to be addressed as an ordinance, and let the approval become effective 30 days from the date of the Planning Commission's July 31, 2019 decision document on Friday, August 30th, 2019.
Second.
So we have a motion to affirm the Planning Commission's approval of the similar use authorization and conditional use permit without requiring the matter to be addressed as an ordinance, and let the approval become effective 30 days from the date of the Planning Commission's July 31st, 2019 decision document on Friday, August 30th, 2019. Discussion. Commissioner Webb, you had something perhaps that you wanted to say?
Yes, I'd like to say that this is a great victory for District 3, which I represent, because we have been able to keep a wonderful business in the district at a bit more desirable location, clearly. So it's always good when we can make a land use decision that keeps a good business operating well, even better, hopefully. I'm personally grateful for that. Before I started to say that we have a kind of an unusual land use case here when we talk about similar uses. And this is an interesting, as a professional planner, for me, this is an interesting part of Oregon land use law. But I think the staff just handled this really, really well. There are an awful lot of environmental issues which had already been addressed by the time this request came in. So it was really a wonderfully expedited process, which is always a wonderful thing for business and for property owners. And the staff really did do a terrific, as always, report on this. And so this is one of those things to me that just feels good. It's a way for us to respond to the immediate needs of one of our important businesses, and for us to do it expeditiously. And so I think it's just, the staff report was, I think, particularly sensitive. I think we're going to face some of these issues during our comp plan process. We're going to be looking at, oh gosh, do we tweak the code now or do we wait until later? And I think their recommendation on this was just spot on. And really, really appreciate, as always, Julia's great work.
I concur.
Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to say, Commissioner Webb, I appreciate your land use and planning background. It makes me feel more confident that we have someone up here that can give us insight. And I'd also agree with you that I'm always very impressed with the reports from staff, so thank you.
So staff trains the members of the Planning Commission. That 5 years I spent there were good training as well. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right. If there's no further discussion, the pending question is, shall we adopt to affirm the Planning Commission's approval of the similar use authorization and conditional use permit without requiring the matter to be addressed as an ordinance, and let the approval become effective 30 days from the date of the Planning Commission's July 31st, 2019 decision document on Friday, August 30th, 2019. An aye vote will adopt the motion and no vote will defeat the motion. The clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Aquila?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye. The ayes are 5, the noes are 0. The motion is passed and adopted. And now we will take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Is Commissioner Webb out there? No?
Have you looked at these? Have you seen the machine out there? They've got this duplication machine out in Jewel.
Now we have, next on our agenda, our business portion.
It's important.
Yeah. It's a whole piece.
Page 183, to accept high bids from July 23rd, 2019 public auction.
Chair Nebecker and members of the board, we had a very exciting auction. We offered 5 parcels. Only 2 sold, but we were not dismayed. It were the 2 properties that had buildings on them that had received numerous attention in publications and otherwise and here at the board meetings. So we had a minimum bid on the property off of Maple Road that Mr. Ron Weber had talked about so much to you of $6,500 because of the condition and the needs that that property has. And we had 2 people at the auction I'd never seen before, and the bidding started at $6,500 and it ended at $47,500. And finally, one of them said, "I give up, it's yours." It was very interesting. Yeah, we ended up with 2 pages worth of bid numbers, and it started out actually with 2 other parties joining in on the bidding. So, but then after over 20,000, I think we just ended up with the 2 going back and forth. So it's very exciting. So that was sold to William Lemire, a young gentleman out of Central Oregon. And then the second house was the G Road house that we did the expedited foreclosure on and did the cleanup on. And that did go for the minimum bid of $45,000 for basically the land value because of the issues of the house. So, and that went to a gentleman who has purchased county property from auctions prior and has done a wonderful, beautiful job of restoring those properties. So we are very hopeful in our office with these 2. So I am asking you this evening to accept these 2 high bids from that auction.
Don't you think we can go a little higher?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I move that the board adopt the resolution in order accepting the high bids on 2 parcels from the July 23, 2019 auction and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
I second.
It is moved and seconded that the board adopt the resolution in order accepting the high bids on 2 parcels from July 23, 2019 auction and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to weep with happiness. This is such a good outcome for the community, for the department, for the county, for the neighbor. I mean, wow, well done. Well done. Thank you.
Hallelujah.
Is there any discussion about this?
Whoever would have thought that G Road.
I know, and the Maple Road, I mean, really, good job.
This tells me that this, it's very desirable now.
Coming
This
back.
land is in that area. So if there's no further discussion, the pending question is, shall we adopt the motion that the board adopt the resolution in order accepting the high bids on 2 parcels from the July 23rd, 2019 auction and authorize the chair to sign the deeds? An aye vote will adopt the motion, and a no vote will defeat the motion. The clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Aquila?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye. The ayes are 5, noes are 0. The motion to adopt, or motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm bringing to you county property and asking for you to consider an offer on it. This property came to the county in 1932. We have had it. It is landlocked. It is unique property, has a lot of blackberries on it, has wetlands, has some trees on it. We tried to auction it in 2014 and it did not sell. I even contacted the adjoining property owners after the auction to see if there was any interest, and there was no interest. And it has been just in the books at the counter since then. And then on July 17th, we opened seal bids, being the 3rd Thursday of the month when we opened seal bids. And we received one offer for $8,000 from Mr. Nikes. And it does meet our policy of 80% after the fact. And it has a real market value of $3,949 and contains 5.63 acres. And this would put the property back on the tax rolls. And Suzanne is at a conference along with Jolene, and she sends her regards to you, and that's why I'm presenting this to you this evening.
Well, I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution in order and authorize the chair to sign the deed.
Second. But discussion?
Yes, it's,
Just for the right, this, the same person, James Nikes, is involved in 2 distinct agenda items tonight. There's no correlation or connection between the 2. It's just a coincidence?
It's just a coincidence.
Thank you.
As far as I know.
I just want to have the record be clear in that regard.
so it is moved and seconded that the board adopt the resolution in order and authorize the chair to sign the deed. Is there discussion? All right. The pending question is, shall we adopt the resolution in order and authorize the chair to sign the deed? An aye vote will adopt the motion, and no vote will defeat the motion. The clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Aquila?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye. The ayes are 5, the noes are 0. So the motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we come to good of the order.
But we have one more.
Oh, we have something else?
Couple more.
What?
What's this north
That was on the consent.
Oh, that was in the
Sorry.
consent calendar, yeah.
I got my
Never
papers
mind.
mixed up. My bad.
Okay, good of the order?
Yes. One, I want to give another shout out to Mount Rainier. I was able to visit Mount Rainier since we were last here, and I feel so grateful for our national parks and public places. And I just want to hope and put a word out there that I hope that we can do all we can to protect them. I know there's talk right now of changing the Endangered Species Act, and that's a concern for me. But it just was a beautiful experience to go there, and to have it so close, it's really something. And then on to the other thing is, we had a work session today concerning projects in Westport, and we had the Regional Solutions here and Business Oregon here along with other people. And so I would like to see if we have a consensus on this board to invite Regional Solutions team to engage with Clatsop County in the planning for community and economic development projects in Westport.
Yes.
Do we have a consensus of that? So
Yes.
I would like to invite you all to come down and help us out. Okay? That's all we need to do? Okay, thank you.
I have a good of the order if you're done.
Yeah.
I've been invited to address the AFL-CIO convention on September 20th in Seaside. I can do it one of two ways. I can speak as the District 5 Commissioner. I can speak as the representative of the County Board of Commissioners. Is it your pleasure that I welcome these working people to Clatsop County on your behalf, or would you rather have me speak as an individual commissioner? I can go either way, whatever makes you happy. If you have consensus that I welcome them on your behalf, I'm happy to do that.
Is that all you would be doing, is just welcoming them? There would be more that you would be saying?
There is always more that I would be saying. There's always more that I say. I believe firmly in the work of working people as being essential for
course.
the world to fund. Well, I say things like that. Nothing
I mean,
I avoid controversy.
I guess the question is could you help us with what the difference is of you going and speaking as an individual or having the board? I mean, is there a statement that we would need to approve of for you to do this?
No, I don't think
I'm
so.
confused on.
I think just speaking from your district perhaps would be best.
I certainly support, unions. I come from a union
I do too.
state, so I don't know, how does the rest of you feel about this?
I would love to think that you could represent all of us in saying that the commissioners of Clatsop County welcome you.
Welcome and appreciate your work.
All right.
Thank you. I'm happy to do that, and I'm sure that they will feel quintuply honored to have, I'm telling you, that's why you go to college, right? So you can have those polysyllabics. Thank you, colleagues.
I just had one thing. Yesterday, I got to give a tour to Representative Jeff Reardon, who's actually from Happy Valley. He was in town with Meta Lofsgarden, who's the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board Director. And they wanted to come see Warrenton. They wanted to see levees, tide gates, the airport, Coast Guard base, all of these things that, we've been working to try to protect. So I met them at the chamber. We went down to the airport and met with Mayor Balanciefer and Gary from the port. And I got a really, I think, a very in-depth kind of discussion about water levels, kind of maintenance concerns out at the airport and the runway, that because of higher water levels is going to need some additional repairs. They're also talking about the county road, because I know the county has come and said that, throwing more money onto this road without doing something about the standing water and doing something about the high water level conditions is is really not a great investment. So it was a great discussion. They even went down to the coast later to go see Tillamook and to see some of the issues. They're very interested in how the Watershed Enhancement Board can be a part of the solution. And I think that we'll have many discussions to come. Next week, I'm going to be at the Oregon Coastal Economic Summit. I'll go as Clatsop County Commissioner from District 1 because I'm going to be talking specifically about District 1 issues with regards to levees and tie gates. And so I heard there's 550 people already registered for it, so it's going to be quite an event. I got to start brushing up on what I'm going to say. But
Now they tell you.
I'll give you a report when I get back. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be next Thursday down in the coast.
I'm going to it.
Great. I'll see you there.
Commissioner Aquila, I'm not unable to attend that. I'm going to be going to another training, but my question is the increase in water table, is that with the rising ocean levels? Because at the same time, we're considered in a drought currently, so there must be a disconnect between, they must be talking about two different things.
Tie gates. It's not just failure of tie gates, but it's also some changes to the tie gates that were put out there. There were some side gates that were put out, most are a top hinge type of design. There were some side gates, and these are kind of the early iterations of fish-friendly tie gates that they put in, and that actually did cause a hydrological lift in the areas beyond. And there's, Warrenton's flat as can be. So when you get more water in there, it just goes for miles.
So
that's one of the issues that they're.
So some of it is aging infrastructure that's already in place. That's part of what the problem is.
And luckily, and Jennifer Purcell from Regional Solutions is here. There is some funding available for tie gates and some funding available for levee assistance thanks to the last legislative session. And so we're going to be reaching out to Regional Solutions to kind of help us connect with some of that funding to maybe make some improvements to those tie gates. And then certainly the levee certification is the big step for the city of Warrenton to try to make sure that those are accredited for the 100-year flood.
Well, certainly the folks I'm sorry, Commissioner Webb, certainly the folks in the Midwest and the problems that they've had with the levees, with all the historic rainfall that they've had, that's affected them. So,
I feel a great need to get smarter about this issue. Is there, I think I asked, it was on our our long list to bring somebody in.
There was a guy from Oregon State, and I had made the agreement with him.
Now you're getting smart, Oregon State guy. So
That's right.
I got no dog in this fight.
U of O wasn't available?
So he had agreed to come at a particular time, and then he reneged because he had a class to teach. We could ask him to come.
Could we do that? I really think this
Yeah.
is something that we need to
If
get.
you want to send me his name and contact information.
Actually, his name has been on the list.
Yeah,
Souter?
Get it someplace. Don't ask me to do it because I'm on the road tonight and I'm thinking about my sister.
Teresa, do you know what list?
John
Commissioner-
Souter?
Yeah, the thing that is at the of the county
The
bulletin.
upcoming meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah. John Souter.
John Souter.
SOUDER. T. Oh,
I-
one of the,
Okay.
and he's at OSU, so
Yeah, he's at OSU.
he's easy to find.
And Wiley Thompson was in with that too, so that God, there's more.
I think that'd be very beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, because most districts
really-
have it,
I would
some
like to learn
iteration of
more.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it affects the
I
entire county.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think we need to be talking about in our comp plan.
Yep.
So if we could have some kind of a presentation that would include as many staff and,
Yep.
some smart.
He had a great presentation down in Tillamook. He had site-specific pictures. He went through the iterations of the various kinds of technology. And it really was absolutely clear what he was talking about. He did a better job of translating it into ordinary language to both farmers and environmentalists and interested stakeholders.
That's great.
All of it. Yeah, he was great.
I'm learning that through county college, probably most robustly, But OSU has an incredible cadre of people who are awfully smart about climate change and who are really, Suzanne Bonamici had a marvelous public town hall where she brought in a bunch of OSU smart people to talk about ocean acidification. And we have these tremendous resources, and a lot of them are at the coast. I mean, they're Sea Grant people, or they're who are between here and Newport or whatever. And I would love it if we could kind of get ourselves smarter.
On the fishing tour,
There's a lot of smart beads out there.
except you.
Thanks a
Oh,
lot.
oh, oh, sorry. My little brother thing came out. On the fisheries tour, I was in the car with the new vice provost, and she was talking about having OSU do more convening in the various areas using the County Board of Commissioners. So I mentioned that to Mackenzie Farrell.
Excellent.
And Wiley Thompson, who's in charge of our region. So if we hook all these, we'll get even more smart beavers coming in. So Commissioner Quila has company, right? Okay.
We always
But-
want to do that.
Well, I
Because
suppose.
he's so outnumbered here on this commission.
Yeah, so if we, but that whole convening, OSU is expert at supporting that, and I think that's where we as a board are headed, to be able to do that listening and that iterative process where we get our message out because we've listened well to our constituents.
Right.
So that they're eager to help us with that.
That'd be great.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? I would just like to say that I was recently in Deschutes County meeting with people who are very involved in the arts there, and they were very interested in what is happening here in Clatsop County with the arts. So we had a vibrant discussion, a lot of crossover, and seeing what this has done for Deschutes County, it's phenomenal. It's changed very much from when I was there last investigating this type of business there. It's pushed it, well, it's a big reason for the growth, and there's always, a plus and minus for growth, but the arts have really brought an awful lot of people, a lot of money there.
All over Oregon, the arts are a great economic driver.
But Deschutes County, I don't know if you, well, especially Bend area, but it's really changed dramatically.
And even some of the East Lake Joseph and places like
Yes,
that are becoming
that's true.
very exciting.
Okay. Adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm joking, no.